Yeah.
NC State's 2019 season did not go the way that they wanted it to, but it did go the way many expected it to. Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, the best kept secret in all of college football. Today, bringing you our 2020 North Carolina State Wolfpack college football predictions. As always, make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, and share these videos. Share all of our prediction videos as we continue to make our way not just through the entire ACC, but every single Power 5 team as well. Also, make sure to check out everything down in our description below, where you can get exclusive content on our website, thegridironexpert.com, and receive updates on our social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So we knew that North Carolina State was going to take a step back in 2019. The Wolfpack went just 4-8 after a 9-win season in 2018. They had so many key pieces to replace on both sides of the ball, namely their quarterback in Ryan Finley, one of the greatest QBs to ever come through NC State. So after this 2019 disappointment, Dave Doeren said, all right, that's enough. We've got to get back to our winning ways. He completely revamped his staff, bringing in Tim Beck from Texas as his new offensive coordinator and promoting Tony Gibson to defensive coordinator. And when you look at the roster here, Beck certainly has a little bit more to work with on the offensive side of the ball than Gibson does defensively. NC State returns 8 starters offensively from a unit that only scored 22.1 points per game last year. It's not a very good mark. You're not going to win many games when you're barely scoring 3 touchdowns per game. Keep in mind, the Wolfpack never scored more than 28 points in an ACC game. They finally might have an answer at quarterback, though. They had so much uncertainty last year, it may have finally landed on Devin Leary, who threw for over 1,200 yards and 8 touchdowns last year. And I really think you'll see him take a major step forward in 2020 if, indeed, that's who Dave Doeren goes with. But the run game's going to be the key, led by Bam Knight, who rushed for over 700 yards as a freshman last year, and then Jordan Houston as well, who had another 500 on the ground and 2 touchdowns. So this offense could very well see a 4 to 5 point, maybe even a touchdown increase in terms of points per game, which could result in a few more wins for the Wolfpack this season. Defensively, they only returned 4 starters. So Tony Gibson doesn't have as much to work with as Tim Beck does. And those 4 starters were part of a defense that allowed 30.1 points per game last year. They're very thin across the board, guys. There's not really one position group on the defensive side of the ball that stands out to me as elite, as one that has the edge over another. But Peyton Wilson will certainly be leading the linebacking core, as he had 69 tackles last year. And Tanner Ingle will have to lead a secondary that only had 4 interceptions in all of 2019. So certainly a lot of improvement needs to be made on both sides of the ball. Certainly a bunch of pieces that have to be refilled on both sides of the ball. But this is a NC State team that does have enough talent to get back to the postseason if they can just finally win the close games. Unfortunately, when we talk about their defense and how bad it was last year, they don't get the liberty of cakewalking through the beginning of their schedule. They get the liberty of facing 2 very talented offensive teams to kick off their season, one of which coming in ACC conference play. The Wolfpack opened up 2020 with a road game at Louisville, a team they lost to 34-20 last year. The Cardinals, in year 2 under Scott Satterfield, are going to be so difficult to stop offensively. They averaged over 33 points per game last year. Now they're led by Mikael Cunningham yet again at quarterback, Javion Hawkins, the 1,500-yard rusher, back at running back, and then an elite core of wide receivers as well. The only problem for Louisville is their defense, kind of like NC State here. They allowed over 30 points per game as well. But the offense will be able to make up for it in this one. Home field advantage will be able to play a small role in this one. I just don't think NC State's defense is prepared to take on this elite of an offense this early in the season. And we think they drop Game 1 to Louisville and Game 2 to Mississippi State, who now is going to be led by Mike Leach as their brand new head coach. So bringing that air raid offense into the SEC. And even though NC State gets to host this game, Leach got the benefit of bringing in a transfer quarterback in KJ Costello, who has playing time at a Power 5 school in Stanford, returns one of the best running backs in the SEC in Kylan Hill, and they just landed Alabama transfer wide receiver Tyrell Shavers. I don't think NC State's defense is ready for this type of aerial attack, and I think they dropped the home game to a Bulldogs team that will go bowling in 2020 in year one under Mike Leach. They then get a road game against Troy, another team that's going to be dangerous offensively, another game that they cannot afford to overlook. But the Trojans went 5-7 last year and now have quarterback questions of their own. Chip Lindsey's entering year two, trying to get his squad back to the postseason, kind of like NC State's trying to do. But even though this game is on the road, I think that the offense finally wakes up a little bit. And I think their run game has a huge, huge day against this Troy defense. NC State picks up their first win of the season on the road against Troy and evens it out, gets back to 500 with a win over Delaware, which we already marked down for them. So they're 2-2 now, going into the bulk of ACC play, which begins on October 3rd against Florida State. Now the Wolfpack lost to the Seminoles 31-13 last year. Yes, they get to host them at home, but Florida State is now beginning the Mike Norvell era. And when you have Mike Norvell, you're going to have a very talented offense. The offensive line should improve drastically for the Seminoles. You should see a big change in quarterback play regardless of who is under center. James Blackman, maybe Chubba Purdy. And you look at Florida State's defense that does return 10 starters. Gone are the days of abysmal playing from the Seminoles. Gone are the Willie Taggart days. Mike Norvell is here. He's here to stay. And he's here to get Florida State back to relevancy. And I think he does just that, slowly but surely in year one, eventually in the years to come. But he does snag an ACC win over the Wolfpack here on the road. And Dave Doeren's squad takes a loss here. Once again, as you can catch the common theme in our losses for NC State so far, it's their defense. Can their defense step up? They don't have much talent returning. They're very thin along the defensive line, the linebacking core, and in the secondary. Who can step up and make plays? And can the defense surprise a lot of people early to maybe snag a win in these first couple games? They move on to Duke on October 10th, a Duke team that went 5-7 last year but just barely missed out on making a bowl game as they had 2 games decided by a field goal. Chase Bryce now steps in as quarterback for the Blue Devils, transferring over from Clemson, and their offense, like NC State, should improve as Duke only averaged a little over 25 points per game in 2019. But I like this game is at home for the Wolfpack. And Dave Doeren's squad, last year was maybe a bit of an exception, but it's not usually a team that has hangovers. It's not usually a team that gets down on themselves early. And I think this loss to Florida State will not derail this squad. Yes, they are 2-3, but guess what? They're going to be 3-3, back to 500 with a win at home over Duke. This is a very winnable ACC game, a Duke team that has a very strong secondary, but not the greatest rushing defense among others. I think they are able to snag a win over a team that might struggle a little bit offensively early in the Chase Bryce era. At Clemson, I mean, come on, guys. We're going to have to mark that down as a loss. There's not much to discuss here. NC State lost at home to them 55-10 last year. Maybe they scored 10 points again. Maybe they're able to snag 2 touchdowns. But this is a Clemson team, guys. It's going to be one of the best in the entire country, as we know, as we expect. Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne, Amari Rogers, an elite defensive line led by Brent Venables. Dabo Swinney's squad may not lose at all this season, and yes, that might include the college football playoff. So NC State drops a road game to Clemson in Death Valley. They are now 3-4 going into their bye week. 7 games in, they're sitting at 3-4. Bye week comes at a perfect time, though, going into a backstretch that really isn't all that difficult. They've got 3 wins, which means they have to win 3 of their final 5 games to go bowling, and 3 of those are at home. That's really, really good for NC State. They start on Halloween against Wake Forest, a Wake Forest team that defeated NC State 44-10 last year. Of course, that was a different Wake Forest team. That was a team that had Jamie Newman. That was a team that was healthy for the majority of the season, about 7 or 8 games of the season. But slowly but surely they started losing everybody and finished the year 1-4. Now Jamie Newman is gone. Now Cade Carney is gone. Kendall Hinton is gone. Wake Forest loses a lot. But what they do return is Sam Hartman, a very talented quarterback who kind of got overshadowed by Jamie Newman. Keep in mind, Hartman was the starter in 2018 before he went down with an injury. You then have Sage Surratt, who is one of the best wide receivers in the ACC, and their defense returns 9 starters as well. Dave Clawson and Dave Doeren are 2 of the head coaches in the ACC that I don't think get enough credit. But in this battle between 2 underrated coaches, it's going to be Dave Clawson that gets the win. NC State, despite having a bye week, despite having this game at home, drops a game to the Demon Deacons. They then kick off November with a home game against Boston College. And they snap that little 2-game skid here. They get a win over the Eagles, a team that once again is going through a head coaching change with Jeff Hafley coming over from Ohio State, a team that loses A.J. Dillon, a team that has questions at quarterback. Only thing that's slightly going for Boston College right now is their defense, returning 7 starters, which is great considering Hafley is a defensive mind. So that's really not going to be enough to maybe get the Eagles to the postseason. This game's at home. They're going to struggle. I like NC State to get the win here. 4 wins. 2 more needed to get to the postseason. And they can get them both right here against Syracuse and Liberty. Syracuse is a team that went 5-7 last year as well. It was very disappointing considering they went 10-3 in 2018. Like Florida State, Syracuse's offensive line has to get much better because Tommy DeVito was the most sacked quarterback in the nation last year. Also like Syracuse, or also like NC State, Syracuse defense must step up as they only return 4 starters and lose a lot of key pieces, especially along the defensive line. But I do think the offensive line improves. I do think Tommy DeVito has another very good year. And even though the defense struggles this year, I think that with the game being at the Carrier Dome, I think Syracuse does just enough to shut down the NC State run game, tries to force Devin Leary to win this game through the air. I don't think he can do it in a hostile road environment. NC State drops the game to Syracuse, but bounces back with a win against Liberty. Yes, we know Hugh Freeze did a phenomenal job with Liberty last year. Got them to a bowl game and won it, finishing 8-5. But they lose their top quarterback in Stephen Calvert. They lose Antonio Gandy-Golson. They lose a lot of key pieces on that offense that was so electric last year. And this is a game that certainly won't be easy defensively for the Wolfpack, but one that they know they have to win if they want to keep their postseason hopes alive, and they get the job done. Which means NC State is 5-6 going into their in-state rivalry game against North Carolina. They win this, they get back to the postseason. If they do not, they finish 5-7 and miss out for the 2nd year in a row. Last year against the Tar Heels, NC State lost 41-10 to the hands of a North Carolina team and Mack Brown that was one of the best offensive teams in the country down the stretch. Unfortunately, they're going to be one of the best offensive teams in the country yet again in 2020 as they return 10 starters from that offense that averaged 33.1 points per game. Sam Howell is a legitimate Heisman contender. He's probably the 2nd best quarterback in the ACC, only behind Trevor Lawrence. That defense returned 7 starters that allowed us a little over 21 points per game last year. And with this game being in Chapel Hill, I don't like the Wolfpack's chances, especially with that very questionable defense. I think Doeren's squad drops this game here, and NC State finishes 2020 at 5-7. That might be very disappointing for some. But once again, like we said at the beginning of the video, we knew 2019 was going to be a rebuilding season. We knew 2019 was going to be a rebuilding season for NC State. A lot of key pieces to replace. This is still a very, very young Wolfpack squad. And when you look at the schedule, maybe they snag a win on the road against Syracuse. Maybe they snag a win over Wake Forest at home. You might even have them defeating Mississippi State in week 2. There are tons of winnable games here that we have marked down as losses that if they just win one of those, the Wolfpack are going back to the postseason. But I still think they're a little too young. They don't have as much depth. And the defense, I think, is just not there yet. I think you see slight improvement under Tony Gibson as the new defensive coordinator. but I just don't think they're to the point where they can shut down some of these really talented offenses that they're going to have to face in 2020. So 5-7 for the NC State Wolfpack this year, but next year, mark my words, they will be making a return to the postseason. So guys, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, and share all of these prediction videos to help our channel grow and spread the word of what we have going on for every single Power 5 team. Also, make sure to check out everything down in the description below. Exclusive college football content on our website, thegridironexpert.com, and exclusive content and updates on our social media over on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all of which you certainly do not want to miss. And once again, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.